This is Zach with Vast Computer Solutions. This video will be showing you how to properly terminate Cat5 or Cat6 low voltage cable. The video will go over each of the points shown. But first, I'm going to be showing you a typical layout of an Amazing Lash Studio. Obviously, our focus in this video is going to be the Cat5. Every studio can be slightly different. So if your layout doesn't look exactly like this, don't be alarmed. But to orient yourself, let's take a look at the lobby, we'll go down the hallway, and this is the break room. Take a second to familiarize yourself with this layout. A typical Amazing Lash Studio has 15 Cat5 runs, 2 for the break room, 6 for the office, and 7 for the front desk. When you ran these lines, you should have labeled each end of them to make it easier when you go to terminate. Each site will have at least one 24-port switch, 12 of them being PoE. So as far as numbering these lines goes, I use the evens as the PoE side. This is because things like voice over IP telephones might utilize this. So for instance, in the front desk, 2, 4, and 6 would be power over Ethernet. And then in the office, 8, 10, and 12 would be power over Ethernet. That leaves 14 in the break room. Let's go over our first point, prepping the wire for placement. Take the wire that's in its socket and look for the label that you already placed on it. What you see in this video is the first outlet in the office. For me, this is number 8 and number 9. I'm going to orient this so that when I'm finished, number 8 is over the top of number 9. Be sure not to mix the two up. To prep this for placement, we're going to take our crimper tools, we're going to cut about an inch or 2 off of this wire, and then all the little wires inside we're going to separate. Most Cat5 or Cat6 wires come with this string inside. Go ahead and just cut it off to get it out of your way. So we just went over prepping the wire for placement, and we briefly covered placement orientation. To go into further detail about placement orientation, it basically means that you're going to have some kind of system in line. The system is to simply keep the PoE wires separated from the non-PoE wires. Now we're going to cover keystone termination. So we prep the wires, and now it's time to terminate into the keystone jacks. Something to note that the easiest network system to do is to just always use the B method. So the B format, whether on the keystone or on the patch panel, will be what we use in this tutorial. Something to note for the keystones is that when you go to put your wires in to their respective places, you want to give yourself just enough slack that the blue portion, or the sleeve, just barely sticks out of the back like so. Now they make different tools for this, but I just have a punch down tool that only does one wire at a time. Be sure to put the covers that came with it on for extra protection. This is what your keystone should look like when it's finished. Now it's time to pop it into the faceplate. Just remember to be extremely consistent whatever system you decided to use in placing your keystones into the faceplates. Now it's time for everything to go into the patch panel. I'll show you how this is done. It's pretty simple. Pull your cables all through and make sure they are all uniform. This is what we are going for as an end result. As you can see, the patch panel is mounted with a bracket, with a couple of screws, a drill, a level, and a marker, you can mount that pretty quick. You'll want to mount it so that's about an inch or so away from the wall. That way, when the patch panel is mounted and it swings open, you'll still have that left wall to punch everything down with. Speaking of punching down, this is normally the patch panel we use. Now, just like the keystone jacks, we're going to use system B to punch everything down with. And everything is pretty simple on how it goes in the back. So this is what it's going to look like when you have all the sub-cables separated into their respective places on the patch panel. Now we're going to use the same punch tool that we use for the RJ45 keystones. Again, you're going to make sure that the sharp end is facing out so that when it cuts the cable, it's cutting it on the outside and not the inside. Again, this picture should be a standard to what your patch panel and cables should look like when you're finished. Nice, tidy, and neat. Be sure that you've labeled all of your cables correctly before mounting them to the patch panel, because if you do this correctly, the patch panel's numbers should line up with your cable numbers. The only thing that you'll have to identify on the patch panel is what numbers you chose to be the power over Ethernet. One more thing that should be noted with cabling these jobs in general is that the audio cables should always be separated from the data cables. I hope that you found this video helpful. You can always contact us if there's any further questions on this portion of the job.